Welcome to the Part S channel. Today we explain Numbers chapter 35 in a clear and simple way, step by step. So let's set the stage here. Picture the Israelites. They're camped out on the plains of Moab, right by the Jordan River, staring across at Jericho. This massive, long wilderness journey is finally wrapping up, and they are gearing up to cross over into Canaan. But before they make that crossing, they have to solve a pretty massive puzzle. How do you build a completely functioning, just society entirely from scratch? Well, that brings us to a huge, immediate logistical problem. Think about the tribe of Levi, the Levites. These are the folks dedicated to the religious service of the entire community, right? But they aren't getting a traditional, concentrated chunk of land like the other 11 tribes. They don't get this massive, continuous block of territory to call their own. So where on earth are they going to live, and how are they supposed to feed their livestock? Chapter 35 gives us the exact answer, and honestly, in doing so, it introduces one of the most fascinating ancient legal systems we've ever seen. All right, let's break down the literal, historical meaning of this chapter. We're going to tackle this in 5 simple parts. First up, land for the Levites. Second, the 6 cities of refuge. Third, the big legal distinction between murder and manslaughter. Fourth, the role of the assembly and the high priest. And finally, the strict rules around witnesses and land purity. Let's jump straight into part 1, land for the Levites, covering verses 1 through 8. Here, the Lord gives Moses very specific instructions for the Israelites. They need to give the Levites exactly 48 towns in total out of the inheritance they're about to receive. And what's really cool is these aren't just random towns. They have to be given out proportionally. So a larger tribe with tons of land gives more towns, and a smaller tribe gives fewer. It's just absolute fairness. Functionally, this is brilliant because it perfectly integrates the Levites throughout the entire nation. It spreads their religious instruction absolutely everywhere instead of just isolating them in one tiny corner of the map. And you have to appreciate the mathematical precision here. The text gives us the exact ancient measurements for the pasture lands around these towns. These open lands extend 1,000 cubits, which is about 1,500 feet, straight outward from the town wall. Then, outside the town, they measure 2,000 cubits on the east, the south, the west, and the north sides, meaning the town sits perfectly in the center. This creates this incredible protective square of open pasture around every single Levitical city, designed specifically to sustain all their cattle and flocks. Moving right along to part 2, the 6 cities of refuge, covering verses 9 through 15. God tells Moses that when they cross the Jordan into Canaan, they have to set aside some very unique places. Out of those 48 Levitical towns we just talked about, 6 of them get a special legal status. In Hebrew, they're called Arei Miklat, or cities of refuge. 3 will be on the east side of the Jordan, and 3 will be over in Canaan. But you might be wondering who actually needs a city of refuge? Well, the text is crystal clear. These 6 cities are a vital safe haven for anyone who kills another person completely accidentally or unintentionally. To really get why they have to flee, we need to talk about the avenger of blood, or the Goel Hadam. In this ancient culture, if a person was killed, the victim's closest male relative had this culturally accepted duty to seek justice or vengeance for their family member's blood. Remember, we are talking about a brand new society without a centralized police force, so this was basically how justice was enforced. But what if the death was just a terrible accident? That's where this kicks in. The accidental manslayer has to run to one of these 6 cities of refuge to escape the Goel Hadam until they can get a fair trial before the assembly. It is an absolutely brilliant system to stop endless cycles of vigilante revenge. That takes us right into part 3, murder versus manslaughter, verses 16 through 24. This is where the text lays down the absolutely crucial legal line between intentional malice and an unintentional accident, because the assembly has to figure out, was this murder or was it manslaughter? The law gets super specific about intent. It's a stark contrast. If you strike someone with an iron object, a heavy stone, or a deadly wooden weapon and they die, that is murder. If you push someone with malice aforethought or intentionally hit them in hostility, you're a murderer. But compare that to an accident. Say there's a sudden push, but absolutely no enmity. Or maybe someone drops a heavy stone without seeing the person below, and tragically that person dies. The thrower wasn't an enemy. They had zero intent to harm. So the intent, what's actually in the person's heart, is the ultimate deciding factor here. Now, if the assembly looks at the facts and decides, yeah, this was absolutely murder with malice aforethought, the law is uncompromising. The murderer is essentially handed right over to the avenger of blood. The text says it over and over. The murderer shall surely be put to death. And the avenger of blood is the one who actually carries out the sentence when they cross paths. Bottom line, there is absolutely zero refuge for an intentional murderer. Let's look at part 4, the assembly and high priest, verses 25 through 29. So what happens if it really was just a tragic accident? The text outlines a strict judicial process in asylum rules for the accidental manslayer. Let's walk through the steps. Step 1, they run to the city of refuge. Step 2, they stand trial, and if the assembly finds them innocent of murder, that assembly steps up to actively protect them from the avenger of blood and sends them back to the city. Step 3, they have to live safely inside those specific city borders. And finally, step 4, they can only go back to their old life and their own property once the anointed high priest dies.
But here is the catch, and it's a massive one. This ancient parole system is incredibly strict. The safety of the city only works if you stay inside. The text explicitly warns that if the accused ever steps foot outside the city limits and the avenger of blood finds them and kills them, the avenger is actually not guilty of murder. So walking out of that city means you are literally forfeiting your legal protection. You have to stay put.
Now, tying freedom to the death of the high priest, this is easily one of the most fascinating mechanisms of ancient justice. Think about the high priest's role. He was the spiritual representative for the entire nation before God. So his passing wasn't just a funeral. It marked the end of an era, a massive national transition. It acted as this incredible national amnesty, an expiration date on the asylum. It meant the accidental manslayer could finally go home in complete peace, and the avenger of blood was legally barred from ever going after them again. Just a really incredible concept. Finally, we arrive at part 5, witnesses and land purity, covering the last verses 30 through 34. These verses lay down some extremely strict judicial rules. First up, the death penalty. Anyone who kills a person can only be put to death on the testimony of multiple witnesses. One witness alone is literally never enough to condemn someone. This is huge because it stops false accusations from turning into lethal miscarriages of justice. Second, there is a total, absolute ban on the wealthy buying their way out of trouble. You cannot accept a monetary ransom to spare an intentional murderer's life. And you also can't accept a ransom to let an accidental manslayer leave the city of refuge early. Justice here is totally blind to wealth. Absolute, unbribable fairness is the law of the land.
So why is this all taken so incredibly seriously? Well, verses 33 and 34 give us the ultimate why. Unanswered bloodshed physically and spiritually pollutes the camp. The text literally says that atonement cannot be made for the land on which blood has been shed, except by the blood of the one who shed it. The land has to be kept pure because the Lord dwells among the Israelites. It is this stark, absolute reminder that human life is sacred, and if you fail to uphold real justice, you defile the very ground you're walking on.
Wrapping this all up, what are the big practical takeaways from Numbers chapter 35? Honestly, it's a profound balancing act. This text balances immense, incredible compassion for genuine human accidents, creating these safe spaces and fair trials, with incredibly strict accountability for intentional, malicious acts. It puts an immense value on human life, it highlights just how legally critical our internal intent is, and it demands a totally pure, unbribable justice system where the rich and the poor face the exact same consequences. I want to leave you with a thought, a really provocative question to ponder. How do our modern systems of justice and asylum actually compare to this ancient demand for unbribable fairness and the absolute sanctity of human life? Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.